Any soldier who was there that day would have had the ability to write a complaint or to let someone in authority know what had happened. Hugh Thompson was the only one who did. He spoke with his chaplain with the understanding that the chaplain would follow this up the chain of command. The chaplain, in this case, dropped the ball and didn't pursue it. Thompson also spoke with Colonel Henderson, Lieutenant Colonel Barker's superior officer, and nothing official was done about the accusations. In fact, there was a great deal of effort to cover up what had happened. The official report sent up the chain of command said that 128 enemy combatants had been killed in combat at My Lai and that 3 weapons had been captured. The person who actually made the effort to tell the story wasn't even there. There was a soldier named Ron Ridenour who was serving in Vietnam. He was not in Task Force Barker. He had nothing to do with the incident at My Lai in March 1968. Ridenour was really troubled by it, and so he started to seek out other men from the company to find out what happened. As a result of his own informal investigation, he starts to hear that the first guy's story is being corroborated down to the finest details. And so in March of 1969, he writes a letter to his congressman who had just come out against the war. And he also sends copies of the letter to military and government officials, other congressmen, senators, the president, senior officials in the Pentagon. And so in April of 1969, the Army launches a preliminary inquiry. Details about what Calley did started to come out in November of '69. The rumors were starting to emerge that a massacre had taken place, that perhaps hundreds of Vietnamese civilians had been killed by American soldiers, and I think people didn't want to believe that it was true. Anything that makes it into Life magazine is kind of a big deal. And so you're flipping through your Life magazine, having heard these rumors or read a newspaper article or two about this Calley guy, and suddenly you turn the page and there in Technicolor is a pile of bodies, a pile of Vietnamese women and children. There's one photograph in particular that's become iconic of the My Lai Massacre, and it is of this pile of people in a road, and on the top of the pile is a baby, a little naked baby with its bottom facing up. It's really hard to understand why the baby needed to be shot. So the photographs pretty much silenced the naysayers who said this was a rumor. This was definitive proof, vindication for Vietnamese people who knew that this had happened. And it became the biggest story of the day, which is quite an amazing thing given that the war itself was incredibly controversial, given that atrocities committed by the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese Army had recently been unearthed in the city of Hue in Vietnam. It reignited anti-war sentiment. So what ensued then was the release of a lot of detail as the trials were underway and publicized with updates day in and day out. The people who cheered Willam Calley had seen those photographs, and they had seen the interviews with the perpetrators, and they had seen interviews with the victims in My Lai, and they had read the testimony in court. They knew what they were cheering. Eventually, the charges that came down were charges of murder against Willam Calley. I think he was charged with over 100 murders because of the incident at the ditch, where he ordered his men to kill, and then there actually came a moment where his soldiers refused to continue because there were only children left, and Calley took one of their rifles and finished the job. Calley's trial drew a tremendous focus, and part of it was because of the defense that he used. He did not deny that he had done these things. In fact, he testified rather proudly about his conduct at My Lai. The Army law is the Uniform Code of Military Justice, says that soldiers have to follow orders, and if in a combat or wartime situation they don't follow orders, that is a treasonable offense. So the defense went something like this. Calley was given these orders, and under penalty of being shot or being prosecuted, he had to follow through. But the Uniform Code of Military Justice says that soldiers are not under any obligation to follow unlawful orders. So the question then becomes whether or not Calley and his men understood that the orders to kill unarmed civilians, women and children, were unlawful.